recommendations? I know we've got programs coming at Coach Training EDU, but what recommendations do you have for lifelong learners? As people just love new information and learning things.
I think that starting your coaching practice, like I think that there's an element of, always being a learner, but you don't necessarily have to have it be a formal thing. Having some like a blog series going or just a habit of reading, book clubs, things like this, I find to be really useful. I think sometimes coaches, they'll keep taking new programs as a way of procrastinating building their coaching practice. You will learn so much about your own self when you're faced with that entrepreneurial challenge. That to me is probably the biggest course you could take, is can you successfully establish an independent practice or get hired as a coach? But can you successfully make a living being a coach is a pretty, that's a big ask. And I would view that as the ultimate, the ultimate course. And once you have that, then take all the programs you want, keep adding stuff to it, go for it. But I wouldn't just continue taking more programs until you've taken those hard steps to get paying clients.
That's such great words of wisdom, John, there. And I mean, one of the things I do admire about you is that you're super courageous. I see that in you. You're really courageous. You will go for it and you'll get it right, but you don't get stuck in perfection. And I see that a lot of people can get stuck in perfection or avoidance. So what words of wisdom do you have? Like, what have you learned from taking some risks?
Yeah, thanks, Raj. I think I get it right about 2 out of 3 times in terms of business stuff. And there have been projects that have totally crashed and burned, and that's okay. Or projects that, I think went a certain way, they were okay. Like, the wellness and the executive books, we have whole books, and yet we're thinking, okay, let's reconfigure this a little bit. And then what do we do with this whole book that I spent years creating? So I think there's an idea of it's okay to put time and energy into something, even if it doesn't work. It's, but I don't know any other entrepreneurial way. I know that maybe if you sat back and made a strategy and had the perfect strategy and business plan and worked this out, and worked with an expert on it, but planning is guessing. And what I found is that if you just do something, you'll learn from that, and then you take that learning, and then there's a whole different direction that you can go in, and then just rinse and repeat. That it's more about having a habit of trying things rather than a habit of thinking things. And that's super different. And trying things doesn't always look pretty. I mean, for years people would say there are typos in your textbooks, or there are typos on the website, or there's this kind of that. And I'm like, yes, but there's also value. There's a lot of, we'd fix them and do all of that work, but it's also, but yeah, the field is so young, it's so new. Like, let's just move this forward and we'll clean it up later. And so that's, I feel like what's, the benefit of where we are now is we've had the time, space, and energy to hire the editors, clean up all the things. And now we have systems and processes to move through this, but that doesn't happen overnight. And it's not fair to yourself when you're starting out to put that kind of pressure on to yourself to be like, you know what, I need to have everything perfect before I even launch this thing. You'll never launch. So when I really think of the mission of, it's more important for us to get the material into the hands of advisors, of people in the executive world, people in the wellness world. It's more important to do this work and share than it is to get it perfect. Then you start moving. That's my perspective. Other people make it perfect, and that's fine. I mean, that's their. I wish I could be more like that. I actively strive to be more like that, put it that way. But I think a lot of people need to actively strive the other way, like actively strive to jump before it's perfect. So I realize, there are different directions for different people. You have to find out what your predilection is, and then what direction you need to go into, and then you're in solid territory.
Yeah, just take the leap. It's making me think about the first program that I did. And I sold the program first. And then I was writing it as I was going along. And I swear I nearly gave myself a heart attack because I'm a recovering perfectionist. So perhaps I should have given myself a bit more time, but I learned so much. And I also learned what I was capable of. And then I think you, John, just like, oh, what do you think about helping with this course or supporting it? I think you can see potential in other people before they can probably even see it in themselves. And it does help you, doesn't it? It helps you take more risks. It helps you build that cognitive agility. And it does help you know what you're actually capable of. Because until you do it, you're kind of just sitting in it, aren't you? Maybe overthinking it or in fear.
Right. It's not easy. It's not fun. I feel like I've sacrificed so much, like health and wellness, writing a health and wellness book. Like, like I was like, I should be exercising right now, but I am working on this chapter about exercise. Like, I remember thinking that for like 3 weeks. Like, what am I doing? But I just has to get done. So I did it and it's done. But then, then what do we do with it? Oh, now we have to pull it back out. We have to pull all that work back out and repackage it. So it's almost like the love of the work has to be more important than the money. The money has to be a tool so you could continue to do your work. And so when you start to really get to these ideas of, yeah, you're doing this to make money, sure, but this is not a field where you get into like, hey, I'm going to get into here and I'm going to like make $1 million and do myself as a coach and do these kinds of things. Maybe if you're an executive coach, and I know some executive coaches we've trained who are they're making some money. Don't get me wrong. They're doing well. And, and I'm happy for them. Like, yeah, that is a path that is possible, but they don't do it starting out to think, oh, I want to make a ton of money doing this. They do it because they love to coach. They love to connect. And it's so cool when you build up a skill set like this, because when you're talking to someone, you're listening to someone, you literally have a skill set where you are listening to them and you can realize, wow, this person, they're doing their internal work. They're doing the work that only they can do. And so from my perspective, I'm in the lovely position where I get to listen to someone in a 2.0, like we did for months. And I realized, yeah, Raj is legit. I can feel her do the internal work. She's someone like, let's invite her into the program. Let's invite her into the organization. Like that is, there's such, that's like a 6-month job interview. That is an amazing advantage. And so when you have a whole team like that, you're doing it because of the mission. The money becomes a tool of the mission. And if people who do it for the money, it just, you feel it. It feels, ugh. And it's fine to get, dip in there a little bit, but then you got to pull yourself out, or else it just feels like an eh.
I agree.
Love
Thanks
your
for
thoughts
that,
on that, Raj.
John.
Yeah.
And I think the only other thing I would add to that then is, yeah, I'm still thinking, I love that 6-month interview. You're observing and watching. Um, it's like that when I run women in leadership programs, we run cohorts and then we look at kind of paying it forward. But one of the things that I get asked by executive leaders a lot as well is around their learning and growth. And they just want to learn and they might not have time to read full books or, I have so many books that I haven't even got round to. So I think it's looking at bite-sized learning as well, isn't it? I love podcasts, YouTube, few minutes. I got a couple of apps actually called Blinkist and Headway. And they're not the best if you're somebody who really loves to get into the book. But I mean, I had a reminder from Headway this morning. It will send me a reminder saying, don't forget your like 2 minutes of reading. It will send me that reminder just so I can do a little bit of bite-sized research. Or I love to follow thought leaders in my field. So there are some thought leaders whose newsletters I've signed up to. And as much as I love to read every single book, I just haven't had the time. So even the snippets keep me interested and keep things current. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think people you find your way, and there's no one right way to do it. I think that it more comes down to like, are you feeling fed? Are you getting the ideas you need to get in whatever form you're getting them? That's what's lovely about coaching, is that there are different answers for different people. For me right now, I mean, this is pretty heavy kid season, so I know that once our little one who just got out of diapers, so that's the big win. Like, that's been the big win in the last 2 months. Then, time starts to shift again, and I used to read books to them to get them to go to sleep, like the books that I want to read, and they just hear my voice and pass out. I mean, that's love. I love passing out to people reading. So I don't know. You find your nooks and you find the nooks of time that you can, read stuff. Yeah. You find what feeds you. One of the things I really enjoy is when I do spend a little bit of time in the morning reading. Like, before I get into any of the email or anything electronic, I will read. And whether that's a book that has anything to do with coaching or anything else or not, just find it really helpful to get my eyes and my mind and mental emotional energy on something that's not electronic is really good. That's the only thing I'd recommend to anyone. But besides that, you feed yourself and you'll figure it out.
Yeah. That morning time's lovely, isn't it? Just sets you up for the day as well.
Yeah, it's essential for a good headspace. Yeah.